Hey guys, tonight we're stepping behind the ruffled curtains, past the pastel kitchen, and right into the slightly suspicious world of 1950s suburbia. Not the Leave It to Beaver reruns, no, tonight we're talking about the real, actual drug cabinets that every American housewife secretly curated. The kind stocked with more chemicals than a modern chemistry set, and guarded from husbands with all the subtlety of a Cold War spy. So before you drift off, maybe like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this kind of thing. And drop a comment telling me where you're listening from, or confess the strangest thing you've found in your grandma's medicine cabinet. I won't tell. Now dim the lights, put on a fan for that soothing hum and get cozy. Maybe double check your nightstand for any vitamin bottles labelled in suspicious cursive. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what actually went on in a typical 1950s kitchen, besides Jell-O salads and low-fat disappointment? Did you know tranquilizers were prescribed like breath mints? Could a housewife really run a household, keep her lipstick fresh, and still remember which nerve tonic wouldn't mix with sherry? What did she do if the kids were bouncing off the linoleum and the dog ate her diet pills? How did she convince her husband that her headache powders were for actual headaches and not just a ticket to 8 hours of blissful oblivion? And was there a black market for mother's little helpers stashed in Tupperware? Well, congratulations. You've just woken up in 1957, in a cul-de-sac where every hedge is trimmed, every casserole is suspiciously jiggly, and the real secret ingredient isn't love, it's pharmaceutical-grade denial. Welcome home. Your eyelids are barely open, but the kitchen clock is already judging you. Before the kids even think about Cocoa Puffs, you've popped a tiny magical vitamin that makes folding laundry feel like a competitive sport. Welcome to the era of breakfast amphetamines, legal, doctor-recommended, and cheerfully washed down with grapefruit juice. The house won't clean itself, and frankly, neither will your nerves. Let's set the scene. It's 1957, the sun's just peeking through the plastic curtains, and the air smells like Maxwell House and Aquanet. You're standing in the kitchen, still wearing a robe that claims it's wrinkle-proof but seems to be actively competing with your face for new creases. Your husband, already out the door with a briefcase and a cheery, "Don't forget to pick up the dry cleaning," hasn't noticed you're barely holding on, except maybe by the red lipstick you've applied with the shaky precision of someone who could use a nap. But naps are for quitters, and besides, who needs sleep when you've got pep pills? You rummage through your floral print purse, careful not to let the kids see, and out comes the little bottle. It says vitamin B complex, but everyone at the pharmacy knows what's really inside. The good stuff, prescribed last week by a doctor who still makes house calls and never ever questions a woman who asks for something to help with my get up and go. You tap a pill into your palm, swallow it with a gulp of orange juice so tart it could clean the sink, and in about 10 minutes you'll be able to alphabetize the spice rack and reorganize your entire sense of self. Outside, the neighbor's Buick pulls out of the driveway. Across the fence you see Mrs. Parker, her hair set like a helmet, her eyes wide and a little too bright, waving with the forced cheer of someone who also discovered breakfast amphetamines. This is the unspoken suburban arms race. Who can look the most together, sound the most perky, and get the kids to school without having a full-scale nervous breakdown in the bread aisle. By 8:30, you've made 4 beds, wiped 6 faces, buttered 24 pieces of toast, and begun a load of laundry that smells vaguely of chemical optimism. The pills don't make you happy exactly, but they do make you busy, which is almost the same thing. You hum a few bars of Que Sera, Sera, a song that promises the future's not ours to see, but doesn't mention the part where the future is scheduled down to the minute and powered by controlled substances. Your mind is buzzing, your hands are moving, and for a little while you're more efficient than a factory line and twice as stressed. As you polish the chrome toaster, again, and yell at the dog to stop eating the couch, you can't help but wonder, is everyone else doing this? The magazines say so. Every ad in Ladies' Home Journal seems to wink and nudge. For pep, for slimness, for that can-do spirit. There's always a smiling woman in a crisp apron, holding a tiny bottle. Sometimes she's mid-vacuum. Sometimes she's just gazing lovingly at a roast. Never mind that her pupils are the size of dinner plates. You glance at your reflection in the percolator. Lipstick perfect. Hair only slightly askew. Heart beating like a jazz drummer. You pause, just for a second, and remember a time before all this, when mornings meant stretching, yawning, maybe even sitting down for breakfast. Now, sitting still feels like a crime. There's always another load of laundry, another list, another reason to reach for that bottle and chase it down with more juice. By noon, the pep is fading, the crash just over the horizon, and you're already planning your next move. Coffee, maybe, or just a quick call to the pharmacy for a refill, doctor's orders. As you line up the vitamins beside your lipstick and the box of cornflakes, you know the ritual isn't about energy, it's about survival. In the 1950s, the morning isn't just a time of day, it's a daily obstacle course. And today, just like every day, you're determined to win. Next up, what's lurking behind the baking powder, and why does every housewife keep a second bottle labelled for nerves only? But first, let's talk about why your right eyelid won't stop twitching. You keep a small brown bottle tucked behind the flower, camouflaged between vanilla extract and marital disappointment. It's Milltown, or maybe Librium, prescribed for housewife's nerves by a doctor who wears a bow tie and calls you dear. Just one pill, and the PTA meeting becomes almost bearable. Let's talk about that bottle. Not the tall one with bourbon, that's for the husband, or the cough syrup, that's for the kids. No, this is your little secret, a pharmacy bottle with a label that says, in typewriter font, take one as needed for tension. As needed. Which, if you're honest, could mean just about every hour the children are home or the phone rings and it's your mother-in-law. There's no clock in the house that measures the distance between sanity and losing it entirely, but if there were, it would tick in the rhythm of tranquilizer doses. In the early 1950s, doctors discovered a modern miracle. Anxiety could be blunted, not just endured. Suddenly, American kitchens were home to more chemistry than most high school labs. Milltown, the original meprobamate, was marketed as the answer to modern stress, a scientific solution for the uniquely exhausting, soul-grinding job of being a housewife. You see the ads in Ladies' Home Journal, a smiling woman surrounded by sparkling countertops and well-behaved children, holding a glass of water and a tiny white tablet. The caption reads, "You can depend on Milltown." No one asks if you want to depend on anything. Dependence is implied. By 1956, the country is taking tranquilizers by the millions. They're handed out at baby showers, whispered about over bridge, and kept in the glove box for emergencies. Your doctor, who spends more time playing golf than reading medical journals, never questions your symptoms. Tired, stressed, having trouble coping. Here, have a prescription. If you have a pulse and a grocery list, you qualify. The side effects aren't mentioned. The magazines only talk about inner harmony and peace of mind. The real peace is that you don't have to feel every single thing so sharply. The kid's tantrum, the scorch mark on the new linoleum, your neighbour's passive-aggressive remarks about store-bought pie crust. You take a pill, smooth your skirt, and walk into the next round of life's disappointments wrapped in a soft haze. There are worse things than not caring quite so much, and yet there's a quiet dread. What if someone finds the bottle? What if your husband, whose own stress solution involves a recliner and a subscription to Sports Illustrated, realises you're medicating your way through the suburbs? There's a dance here. You want relief, but you don't want to seem weak. Society expects you to juggle perfection, but never drop the act. You don't call it dependence, you call it coping. The pharmacist never looks you in the eye. PTA meetings become a test of pharmaceutical strength. The other mothers are all smiles, some a little too relaxed. You wonder who else has a bottle in her purse, who else is floating through the treacle of conversation about bake sales and school funding. The principal drones on about attendance, and you focus on your cuticles, your breathing, the feeling of cotton in your mouth. When it's over, you forget half the meeting, but you didn't stand up and scream, so that's progress. At home, you cook dinner on autopilot. The kids squabble, the dog barks, the phone rings. The little bottle is always there, promising you can get through the evening. Sometimes you feel guilty, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you wonder how your own mother survived without chemical backup, or if she did. There's a photograph of her on the mantel, hair perfect, eyes tired, hands resting on your shoulder. You wish you could ask her what she did when it all felt like too much. You imagine her advice: take a walk, have a cry, put on lipstick and keep going. Or maybe, if she'd had the choice, she'd have hidden a bottle too. In the end, Mother's Little Helper isn't just a pill, it's a lifeline, a private sanctuary, a soft focus filter on a world that expects you to smile through gritted teeth. You hide it behind the flower, but really, you're hiding it in plain sight. Because you know, and every other woman knows, that sometimes getting through the day means accepting whatever help you can find, even if it comes in a brown bottle with a label typed by a stranger. And if anyone asks, it's for your nerves, isn't everything? Take 2 powders and call me in the morning, says the ad. In reality, headache powder is code for I need a break from my own children. The powder fizzes, your mind goes fuzzy, and suddenly the neighbour's new garbage disposal is the most fascinating thing you've ever seen. Let's be honest, in the 1950s, a headache was the all-purpose excuse, the safe word for a life lived in perpetual noise. Headache powder wasn't just for migraines or that one time you tried to read your electric bill. It was for those afternoons when the sound of siblings bickering over the last Vienna sausage made you question every life choice since the Eisenhower administration. The box sat right in the medicine cabinet, sandwiched between your husband's razor blades and the mysterious bottle of iodine no one ever used, and promised fast, gentle relief. Relief from what? That was up to you. The process itself became a ritual. You rip open the little packet lemon-lime flavour if you squint past the bitterness and dump the powder into a glass. It hits the water and bubbles like a science experiment gone slightly wrong, fizzing and hissing and sending up a faint scent of artificial citrus. You pretend to cough, just so the kids don't ask for a taste, then gulp it down in one, trying not to wince. Within minutes, your brain feels lighter, your body a little more buoyant, and the edges of your day soften just enough to make the world bearable. Most powders of the time weren't just aspirin, of course. They were a cocktail, sometimes literally, of pain relievers, caffeine, and a sprinkle of hope. A few formulas snuck in barbiturates for serious pain. The directions were vague. Take as needed for discomfort. Well, being a mother in the 1950s is nothing if not discomfort in high heels and a bullet bra, so you took one at the first sign of trouble. If the trouble was persistent, it usually was, you took another. No one at the drugstore asked questions. The beauty of the headache excuse is that it worked for everyone. Husband wants to know why dinner is late. Headache. Children begging for a fourth reading of the pokey little puppy. Mommy has a headache. Go ask Daddy. Even your friends at the bridge table understood the code. Bad day? You look tired. You just raise an eyebrow and mime tipping powder into a glass, and they'd all nod in silent, fuzzy-headed solidarity. Sometimes the powder didn't even make it to water. You'd catch yourself pouring it straight onto your tongue in the hallway, just to shave 10 seconds off your escape plan. If anyone asked, you'd say it was an old family remedy. The old family remedy was really just survive by any means necessary. On those days when the powder took the edge off a little too well, you found yourself standing in the kitchen staring into space, perfectly content to watch the neighbour's son demonstrate their new garbage disposal for the third time that week. Look, it can even handle chicken bones. You clap and smile because honestly it's the most peaceful 5 minutes you'll have until bedtime. Maybe you're not actually interested in food waste management technology. Maybe you're just grateful for an excuse to stand in one place, nobody asking for anything, the soft fizz of the powder still echoing in your head. There's a flip side to the fuzziness, of course. Sometimes you forget what you were doing. You open the refrigerator, stare at a lone jar of olives, and wonder if you came for a snack or to hide. You fold laundry, forget whose socks are whose, and start humming along to the radio in a key that doesn't exist. The world blurs and softens, and the pressures of perfection, ironed shirts, hot meals, polite children, fade just enough to give you breathing room. Headache powders weren't just a product. They were an institution. They were quiet rebellion, a mother's secret handshake, a way to reclaim 10 blessed minutes of stillness in a day designed by chaos. So when the ad says for headaches, you just smile, pour another fizzy glass, and remember, sometimes the best medicine is the one that lets you forget, at least for a little while, how much your head actually hurts. Next up, let's take a peek inside the sewing kit where pet pills are stashed among the buttons. Because when it comes to staying sane in suburbia, a little ingenuity and a lot of pharmaceutical help goes a long way. He thinks you're mending socks. In reality, you're hiding a stash of pet pills among the spools of thread. It's not deception if it's for the greater good, like surviving another round of Tupperware parties with your sanity intact. Let's set the scene. It's 3:15 p.m, and the living room looks like a disaster relief zone for dolls, puzzle pieces, and stray cookie crumbs. Your husband will be home in 2 hours, expecting a dinner that didn't come from a can and children who aren't painting the cat. The sewing kit sits at your feet, a battered tin with a cheerful strawberry print filled with tangled bobbins, needles you're afraid to touch, and your real lifeline, a slim, rattling bottle marked with a pharmacy label. Officially it's called Benzedrine. Unofficially it's Mum's special weapon. You didn't invent the emergency stash. You learned it from your neighbour, who winked as she handed you your first pill, along with a recipe for Jell-O salad and a warning. Hide it well. In the 1950s, sewing was a private activity, a rare sliver of time when you weren't actively being watched. The sewing kit is perfect camouflage. What husband in America would ever poke around in a sea of tangled thread, mystery zippers, and the eternal mystery of the missing thimble? It's the safest safe you own. The ritual is always the same. You reach for the kit when the to-do list starts multiplying like rabbits, and your eyelids are drooping halfway through the second cup of coffee. One quick glance, kids distracted, husband tinkering with the lawnmower, and you're fishing out the bottle. The pills are tiny and chalky, disguised as something medicinal, but their power is anything but subtle. Within 20 minutes, you can tackle 3 loads of laundry, vacuum the curtains, bake a pineapple upside-down cake, and plan a passive-aggressive comeback for Mrs. Kowalski at the PTA. It's easy to joke about pet pills, but for housewives in the 1950s, this was just another tool of survival. The post-war world promised you everything: a modern kitchen, obedient children, and fulfillment in a spotless house. But it forgot to mention how exhausting it would be to maintain. Advertisements promised happiness in the form of shiny appliances and all-electric everything. But the reality was endless repetition, invisible labour, and the creeping suspicion that you should be doing it all with a permanent smile. Enter the emergency stash. See, the pills aren't just for physical energy, they help you keep up appearances too. When you host a Tupperware party, you're not just selling burpable bowls, you're selling the image of a woman who has it all together. The living room sparkles, your lipstick is fresh, and you can make small talk about plastic storage with a kind of manic cheer that makes your neighbours wonder if you're genuinely enthusiastic or just a little bit unhinged. Maybe both. You tell yourself it's temporary, just until the house is in order, just until the kids are a little older, just until life gets a little less frantic. But the sewing kit becomes a trusted friend. You start tucking it into your purse for trips to the supermarket, to your mother-in-law's house, anywhere you might need a little boost. The pills give you momentum, but also a fuzzy detachment from the endless repetition. Socks, buttons, casseroles, and never-ending noise. Sometimes you catch your reflection in the window, hair perfectly set, hands moving in a blur, heart pounding like you're running a marathon in heels. Is this how your mother did it? Did she have a secret stash hidden in her darning mushroom, or did she just grit her teeth and hope for the best? You'll never know, because no one talks about the emergency stash. It's just another unspoken rule, like not airing your laundry in public, or admitting that sometimes you need help. At the end of the day, the sewing kit goes back on the high shelf, out of sight, its true content safe from prying eyes. You smooth the fabric on the latest sock you didn't really mend, smile at your family, and pour yourself a glass of something cold. You made it. Not because you're perfect, but because you're resourceful, and in the 1950s that's the only way to survive. Next up, let's unwrap the pastel diet candies that promise energy, slimness, and just enough dry mouth to make you forget about dinner entirely. Because sometimes the real secret to getting through the day is hiding in plain sight, right next to the button jar. Who needs lunch when you can chew a diet candy and pretend it's food? Never mind that your heart is racing and your left eye has developed a twitch. These pastel tablets promise slimness, energy, and enough dry mouth to mop the entire kitchen. Let's talk about the wonder that is 1950s diet candy. A small, innocent-looking lozenge with the aesthetic appeal of a dish of Jordan almonds and the pharmacological kick of a jackhammer. You buy them at the corner drugstore right next to the lipstick and the reducing gum, all in candy colours, all claiming to be the secret to a new svelte you. The advertisements are relentless. A slender figure starts with one delicious tablet, as if the only thing standing between you and the life you want is a little willpower and a lot of artificial cherry flavour. You unwrap the foil and pop one in your mouth, expecting something like a peppermint, but what you get is a curious blend of chalk, saccharin, and the unmistakable aftertaste of pharmaceutical-grade amphetamine. It doesn't matter. You weren't really hungry anyway. Lunch in the 1950s is a loose concept for a housewife on the go, a wedge of iceberg lettuce, a phone call from the PTA, and a couple of these miracle candies tucked in your apron pocket just in case. And if you're especially ambitious, you might skip the lettuce and go straight for the good stuff. The house is quiet, save for the ticking clock and the faint hum of the new Frigidaire. You pace the kitchen, feeling the energy fizz beneath your skin. Suddenly, you have the urge to alphabetize the spice rack, dust the top of the refrigerator, and finally write that thank you note to your cousin for the set of novelty pot holders she sent last year. Everything feels possible until you realise you haven't blinked in 6 minutes and the dog is starting to look worried. Diet candies are a marvel of modern marketing. On the outside, they're all glamour and hope. Pictures of smiling women with impossibly tiny waists and not a single hair out of place. On the inside, they're pure chemical ambition, sprinkled with enough benzodrine to make you believe you can fit into last summer's capri pants by Thursday. The truth is, no one actually likes the taste. But in a world where a woman's worth is measured by her dress size and the gleam of her Formica countertops, what's a little bitterness? You keep the tin in your purse, just in case the afternoon slump hits while you're out shopping or gossiping over coffee. At bridge club, you offer one with a conspiratorial smile. Everyone knows what's really inside, but no one says a word. Just a little pick-me-up, you say, and everyone laughs, a bit too loudly, because they're all running on the same combination of caffeine, nerves, and unspoken desperation. Eventually the side effects catch up. Your mouth feels like you've swallowed a box of talcum powder. Your heart taps out a frantic beat, faster than any swing record in your collection. You try to focus on dinner, but the world is a little too sharp, a little too bright. You're wired, yes, but also hungry in a way that's almost existential. The box promises you'll forget all about food, but it doesn't mention you'll also forget where you put your keys, your shopping list, or your sense of proportion. Sometimes, late at night, you wonder if anyone really believes the promise, that one tiny candy can make you a better mother, a better wife, a better version of yourself. You remember your own mother rolling her eyes at fad diets, making sensible lunches, and shaking her head at the idea that a pill could fix what was missing. But things are different now, or at least that's what the radio says. Progress is fast, hunger is the enemy, and perfection is always one swallow away. When the day is done and the kitchen sparkles, you tuck the candy tin back in the drawer, brush your teeth to cover the aftertaste, and steel yourself for tomorrow's promises. Another day, another miracle in a pastel wrapper, another reason to smile through the side effects. After all, isn't that what modern living is all about? Next up, let's explore the coded language of nerve tonics, where every bottle is a question mark, and the only certainty is that it probably isn't just tonic water. Nerve tonic could mean anything: whiskey, quinine, or something the pharmacist sold in an unlabelled bottle with a wink. The important part is you never say exactly what it is, only that it takes the edge off. Husband asks. It's for female complaints. In the secret society of 1950s suburbia, every housewife learns to speak fluent code. Nerve tonic is the phrase that smooths over awkward questions, buys a few hours of calm, and signals to every other woman in the room that you're barely hanging on to. The real marvel is how many products fall under this mysterious umbrella: elixirs, bitters, syrups, powders, and tinctures, each with a label just vague enough to hide a multitude of ingredients and intentions. Sometimes it's a stiff pour of bourbon disguised in a teacup. Sometimes it's something the corner druggist cooked up, poured out of a brown bottle that smells like regret and citrus. You keep the tonic tucked in a cupboard high above the cereal, away from prying eyes and curious little hands. The bottle sits beside the old cough syrup and the special vanilla you only use for grown-up desserts. The glass is always a little dusty, the label faded or non-existent, because the true sign of authenticity is plausible deniability. If anyone asks, you shrug and say it's for your nerves, then change the subject to the new wallpaper pattern, or the latest scandal at the beauty salon. This coded language isn't just for fun, it's a tool for survival. Housewives aren't supposed to complain. You're meant to glide through life with a smile and a jello mould, never letting anyone see the cracks. Nerve tonic is what you reach for when you've reached the end of your rope but need to keep tying knots. The ritual is always the same. Open the cupboard, pour a discreet splash into a juice glass, and sip slowly while listening to the soothing white noise of the washing machine in the background. With each swallow, the world sharpens and softens at the same time. The sharpness is focus, the softness is blessed indifference. Of course, every neighbourhood has its own pharmacy folklore. Mrs. Doyle down the street claims her tonic is a secret family recipe: 1 part honey, 1 part vinegar, and a generous glug of gin. Mrs. Jackson swears by herbal bitters, which, if you catch a whiff, smell suspiciously like the bar at the Elks Lodge. You trade bottles and recipes in hushed tones, passing along little brown bags at bake sales and bridge games. The pharmacist, always a man with a secret smile and an eye for discretion, knows who needs what and when. Sometimes he adds a little something extra for his special customers. Nerve tonics are never discussed in mixed company. If your husband asks why you're napping at 3 p.m, or why you've started listening to classical music while scrubbing the grout, you answer with 2 words: female complaints. He nods, pretends to understand, and goes back to reading the sports page. It's the perfect explanation, vague, unassailable, and just a little bit ominous. No one wants to wade into the murky waters of feminine health, least of all the men of the house. But for you and every other woman who has ever wanted to scream into a pillow, Nerve Tonic is a gentle wink, a promise that relief is only a swallow away. The tonic is there after a long phone call from your mother-in-law, after a day of chasing toddlers and burning dinner, after a Tupperware party that lasted 2 hours too long. It is the punctuation mark at the end of a sentence you never wanted to write. Some nights, after everyone else is asleep, you pour a double. The house is silent except for the hum of the fridge. You sit by the window, sip your tonic, and let the day dissolve. Tomorrow the charade begins again. Lipstick, casseroles, composure. But for now, in the glow of the street lamp, you're simply yourself. Tired, real, and, for a few precious moments, calm. Next up, let's pop open those caffeine tablets that turn the afternoon slump into an Olympic sprint. Because in the world of the 1950s Housewife, sometimes the secret language of survival is spelled out in milligrams and mumbled through a polite smile. You've already had 3 cups of coffee and a slice of banana bread, but the energy crash looms. Enter the caffeine tablet, tiny, tasteless, and powerful enough to make you believe ironing is a spiritual experience. It's 2:17 p.m. The sun slants through the kitchen window, painting golden stripes across a mountain of dishes and the morning's abandoned cereal bowls. The kids are still at school, unless it's summer, in which case you've considered mailing yourself to Bermuda. This is the hour when even the bravest housewife begins to flag. You look at the chores left for the day: ironing, dusting, the never-ending ballet of wiping fingerprints off every flat surface, and you feel your will to live slipping away faster than your memory of algebra. You'd think coffee would be enough. After all, it's the black nectar of mid-century motherhood, always brewing, always poured, always somehow lukewarm. But there's only so much a percolator can do before your body stages a revolt. Enter the little white caffeine tablet, purchased at the Rexall with a wink and a promise. You keep them in the pantry, tucked behind the canned beets and the box of cornstarch you bought in 1949. Use as directed, says the label, which is as vague as the instructions for assembling a playpen and about as likely to be followed. The beauty of the caffeine tablet is its discretion. No need to explain why you're making another pot of coffee or why you're suddenly reorganizing the spice drawer alphabetically. You just pop a tablet, swallow it with a sip of lukewarm Sanka, and wait for the world to sharpen around the edges. In 10 minutes, you're no longer just a woman with chores. You are the conductor of an invisible orchestra, and today's symphony is Ode to Clean Linoleum. The energy is uncanny. One moment you're daydreaming about lying down just for a second, just to rest your eyes. The next, you're rearranging the pantry so efficiently you're convinced you missed your calling as a logistics manager for the army. Ironing, usually the dullest task on earth, suddenly becomes an act of transcendence. The hiss of steam, the rhythmic motion, if you close your eyes, it's almost meditative. Almost, if enlightenment involves a faint smell of scorched polyester. Other housewives catch on. At Bridge Club there's a silent understanding. You look lively, one says as you recount in suspicious detail your battle with the sock drawer. You smile a little too wide and offer her a tablet from your compact. She declines, she's already on her second, and her pupils are the size of dimes. Together you spend the next 20 minutes discussing the relative merits of starch brands and the philosophical implications of permanent press fabric. Is it happiness? Maybe. Is it chemically induced? Absolutely. Caffeine tablets aren't just about staying awake, they're about keeping pace with the impossible. They're about finding the spark to keep going when the to-do list never ends and the only reward is another list tomorrow. In the glossy world of magazine advertisements, housewives always look fresh, alert, and ready for anything. In reality, they're riding a wave of stimulants just to keep from nodding off into the mashed potatoes. Of course, there's a price for all this energy. Your hands might tremble a little as you fold the napkins. You might find yourself talking to the television during commercials. And when bedtime comes, you lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how your grandmother ever got through the day without a little help in pill form. She probably just drank more coffee and powered through. But you've discovered the miracle of modern pharmacology and you're not about to give up your edge. As the sun dips lower and the kids barrel through the door, you're ready, almost superhuman in your efficiency if a little wired. Dinner, dishes, baths, bedtime. You tackle it all in a caffeinated blur. And tomorrow, when the slump hits again, you know exactly what to do. Because in the 1950s, sometimes the difference between a good day and a nervous breakdown is about 200 milligrams and a really positive attitude. Next up, let's take a peek at the glamorous world of afternoon socials, where the only thing stronger than the sherry is the collective denial that anyone is actually relaxed. The ladies gather, the ashtrays overflow, and the conversation gets a little giggly. Somewhere between the gossip and the third glass of sherry, someone produces a calming tablet from a faux pearl pill box. That's how secrets stay safe, and so do shaky hands. Let's set the scene. It's Thursday afternoon, and the living room is thick with the sweet haze of Lucky Strikes and White Shoulders perfume. The coffee table is a battleground of half-eaten petit fours, lipstick-stained cocktail napkins, and a stack of magazines promising everything from spot-free glassware to a husband who puts his socks in the hamper. But no one here is looking for miracles, just a little escape, a bit of camaraderie, and the assurance that everyone else is paddling frantically beneath the serene suburban surface. Social hour in the 1950s is less about relaxation and more about group therapy, cloaked in silk scarves and punctuated by laughter that's a touch too loud. The sherry flows freely, not because anyone particularly likes the taste, but because it's polite, adult, and conveniently dulls the edges of small talk. You take your glass with practiced poise, smiling as Mrs. Harris recounts her latest run-in with the school crossing guard, a story you've now heard so many times you could recite it backward in your sleep. And yet, as the hour ticks on and the decibel level rises, a subtle transformation takes place. The conversation grows bolder, the topics a shade more scandalous. Someone finally mentions her mother-in-law by name, another lets slip a not-so-subtle complaint about her husband's new golfing habit. Laughter erupts, and you realise, with relief, that you're all in the same leaky rowboat, tossed around by chores, children, and the relentless expectation to be charming. Somewhere in the lull between stories about stubborn stains and mysterious rashes, Mrs. Murphy opens her purse and, with the ritualistic flair of a seasoned magician, produces her faux pearl pill box. She opens it, and nestled inside are a few pastel calming tablets, the unspoken star of every gathering. Without missing a beat, she offers the box around and the circle closes in. You take one with a wink and a doctor's orders, popping it discreetly as you pretend to be entranced by a recipe for aspic. It tastes faintly of chalk and medicinal hope. These tablets, Milltown Librium, sometimes just something from the doctor, aren't so much about genuine tranquility as about forging a brief alliance with sanity. They take the edge off the nerves frayed by a week of sleepless nights, PTA, squabbles, and existential dread about Tupperware stains. The little pills aren't discussed in detail, they're simply for nerves. That's all anyone needs to say. Of course, the sherry and cigarettes help too. The ladies lean in, trading confessions and jokes, their laughter punctuated by the occasional hacking cough or sigh of dramatic exhaustion. In this moment, the ordinary trials of domestic life, burned meatloaf, ungrateful husbands, sticky-fingered children, fade into the background. For an hour, you belong to a sisterhood of survival, united by shared secrets and the mutual understanding that none of you are quite as together as you pretend to be. But behind the laughter, there's an undercurrent of fatigue, of longing for something more than polite conversation, and a little something for the nerves. Maybe you're all searching for permission to be human, to admit that perfection is a costume that pinches after a while. The pills, the sherry, the smokes, they're the props that make the performance possible. As the sun dips lower, the group disperses, lipstick reapplied, scarves fluffed, secrets intact. You hug your friends, gather the empty glasses, and wave as the last car pulls away. The living room smells faintly of ash and perfume, the silence suddenly heavy. You tuck the remaining tablet in your pocket, feeling a quiet kinship with every woman on the block. Tomorrow, the world expects composure. Tonight, at least, you found a bit of peace in the company of those who understand why the calming tablet is always just within reach. Next up, let's pay a visit to Dr. Feelgood, the neighbourhood physician whose prescription pad is never far from his pocket and whose waiting room always smells faintly of peppermint and plausible deniability. There's always a friendly neighbourhood doctor ready with a prescription pad and a collection of free samples. He never asks too many questions. Why would he? He's making his mortgage payments on the strength of suburban malaise. Let's step into the waiting room, a beige oasis of outdated magazines, the soft tick of a grandfather clock, and the scent of antiseptic with a hint of stale peppermint. Dr. Albert L. Morrison, MD, known to most as Dr. Feelgood, holds court here in his crisp white coat, hair slicked back, eyes twinkling with a mix of medical authority and gentle conspiracy. His office walls are lined with diplomas, framed photos of fishing trips, and a modest shelf of pill bottles that seem to multiply each month, each with a sample sticker or a pharmaceutical brand's calendar perched nearby. House calls are Dr. Morrison's specialty. He'll drive his gleaming Ford straight to your door, his black bag in hand and a notepad of prescription forms peeking out of the flap. You greet him in your best robe and a nervous smile, balancing the relief of his arrival with the dread that you'll have to confess, again, that you're tired, on edge, and just not yourself. The truth is, you've never really been yourself, not since the second child, the fifth casserole disaster, or the day you realise the PTA is a lifelong sentence. Dr. Morrison asks about your nerves. He asks if you're sleeping, if your appetite is good, if you feel overwhelmed by the little things. You nod, staring at your shoes, as if there's an answer that won't end with another prescription. But he's not here to judge. He's here to help. Or, at least, that's what the pharmaceutical reps assure him. Out comes the latest sample, a bright capsule or a tiny bottle, new to market, very safe, with a smile that lets you know you're in the hands of modern science. There's comfort in his routine. He listens without offering advice. He frowns at your pulse with professional concern, then writes out a neat prescription for something that will take the edge off, help you get some rest, keep you steady. You're not sure if it's for anxiety, fatigue, or the creeping suspicion that you'll never live up to your own expectations. It doesn't matter. He hands you a few free samples. Try these before we fill the full script and tells you to call if you need anything at all. You both know you will. The medicine cabinet at home is slowly filling up with his handiwork. There's a pill for morning energy, another for afternoon focus, one for sleep, and something else for the days when you feel like crying for no reason. You could open a small pharmacy, but instead you just line up the bottles behind the cold cream, each one a little monument to Dr. Morrison's particular brand of care. Dr. Morrison is beloved in the neighbourhood. He's at every school play, every charity luncheon, always smiling, always with a word of comfort and a discreet inquiry about your refill status. The other mothers call him a miracle worker. The men don't seem to notice how often he visits, or maybe they do and just appreciate the quieter, steadier homes he leaves in his wake. Behind the scenes, Dr. Morrison's phone rings off the hook. Housewives, widows, and the occasionally desperate college student all know he's the man to call when the world feels a little too sharp, a little too loud. He never gossips, never betrays a confidence. The pharmacist, who sees his signature more than anyone else's, just smiles and fills the bottle. No questions asked. Maybe someday the world will look back and wonder if all those prescriptions were necessary, or if Dr. Feelgood was just the friendly face of a complicated era. But for now, as you swallow another sample and hear his cheerful "feel better soon" echo down the driveway, you're simply grateful for his visits, his kindness, and his miraculous ability to make suburban life just a little more bearable. Next up, let's peek behind the fridge door and pour ourselves a glass of tonic water, because when the ingredients are top secret and the label says for digestion, you know you're living in a world where even the simplest refreshments aren't always what they seem. The kids think it's soda. The husband thinks it's just for digestion. But the tonic water in the fridge contains a cocktail of chemicals with names you can't pronounce. You drink it over ice, stare at the wall, and decide you don't care. Tonic water in the 1950s is a beverage of many faces. There's the kind you serve with a slice of lime at bridge club, the bottle you pull out after a rough day to sip in the fading light, and the sort you keep for medicinal purposes but end up pouring over ice because the world is just a little too much. The label says refreshing and good for the nerves, but what it really offers is plausible deniability. In a decade obsessed with appearances, tonic water is the housewife's liquid camouflage. Of course, the secret isn't just in the taste, it's in the ingredients list, written in a type so small you'd need a magnifying glass and a chemistry degree to decipher it. Quinine is the only name anyone recognises, and it's there because someone's great-aunt once claimed it could ward off leg cramps, bad dreams, and probably communism if you drank enough of it. The rest? Well, flavourings covers a multitude of sins. sodium benzoate, brominated vegetable oil, and a half-dozen mysterious extracts with numbers instead of names, each one promising to add sparkle to your afternoon, but offering a subtle chemical punch that numbs the palate and the spirit. You pour yourself a glass, swirling the ice cubes with a practiced flick, and take a sip. The first taste is sharp, almost medicinal, the kind of bitterness that feels strangely grown up. As the cold seeps in, so does a gentle haze, a light-headed, floaty feeling that has nothing to do with calories and everything to do with the secret arsenal of the 1950s pantry. You watch condensation run down the glass and try not to think about dinner, bills, or the state of the living room rug. For a few moments you're somewhere else, someplace where no one expects you to smile, and you don't have to explain why you're still in your housecoat at 4 p.m. There's a quiet comfort in the ritual. Tonic water is the official drink of not now, dear. The beverage you reach for when tea feels too prim and sherry too dramatic. The kids want a sip, but you gently steer them toward lemonade. The husband raises an eyebrow at your third glass, but says nothing. After all, it's not as if you're sneaking whiskey in the garage. Tonic water is practically a health food, at least according to the advertisements in Ladies' Home Journal. And oh, the advertisements. Smiling women with glowing skin, their hair perfectly coiffed, touting the wonders of crisp, refreshing relief. The copy hints at mystery, at sophistication, at a certain worldliness that you could aspire to if only you kept your glass full and your doubts to yourself. The marketing never mentions that the fizz masks fatigue, or that the bitterness distracts from the endless parade of casseroles and canned vegetables. It's just another little lie in a world built on little lies. Sometimes, when the house is quiet and you're the last one awake, you sneak to the kitchen for another glass. The fridge hums, the ice crackles, and you stand there, bathed in pale yellow light, breathing in the peculiar mix of refrigerator air and anticipation. You know what's in that tonic water, and you also know what's not. Guilt, judgment, or any expectation to be more than you are in that moment. Tomorrow, you'll buy another bottle. You'll tuck it in the fridge behind the leftovers, ready for the next time you need an excuse to pause, regroup, and stare at the wall until you remember what it feels like to be yourself, not just Mom, Honey, or Mrs. Johnson from number 12. In the 1950s, that's as close as most women get to a private retreat. All it takes is ice, a splash of secrecy, and a tonic that promises, if nothing else, a break from the ordinary. Next up, let's talk about the glamour of the prescription pad, where the bottle on your vanity is just as elegant as the pearls you only wear to church, reminding you that sometimes luxury is a matter of perspective and labelling. Prescription bottles in the 1950s look like luxury cosmetics, elegant fonts, gold accents, and a promise of sophistication. You arrange them on your vanity, right next to the cold cream, and feel almost glamorous, until the side effects kick in. It's not enough to have the right dress, the right lipstick, or the right set of matching luggage. In this post-war world of gleaming appliances and curated perfection, even your medicine has to look stylish. The pharmacy delivers your prescriptions in a soft pink bag, folded over twice and sealed with a gold sticker, as if it's a gift from the perfume counter at Macy's. Inside, the bottle glows with potential, amber glass reflecting the afternoon light, the label scripted in looping cursive that makes take one daily look like an invitation to a secret society. On your vanity, there's a whole constellation of little luxuries: hand lotion in a fluted bottle, a compact shaped like a seashell, and taking centre stage, a prescription bottle that could be mistaken for a high-end moisturiser. The lid is gold, the label is elegant, and for a moment you almost forget that what's inside is more chemistry experiment than beauty elixir. You arrange it next to your favourite cold cream and a powder puff, admiring how well it fits into your curated still life of self-care. It's easy to believe you're living in a magazine spread, or at least the most glamorous part of the Sears catalogue. The advertising isn't subtle. Every women's magazine boasts full-page ads featuring chic, sophisticated women in silk robes, sitting at mirrored vanities and reaching delicately for their doctor-prescribed solution. The promise is clear. These aren't just pills. They're a passport to poise, grace, and calm composure, all with a twist of the cap. Recommended by experts, the copy reads, "Next to a woman with luminous skin and absolutely no visible pores or problems." In these glossy pages, even anxiety has a wardrobe and a shade of lipstick. But after the first few doses, the glamour dims. You're standing at your vanity, the mirror glowing with the soft focus of hope, when the room tilts just a little. The pills promise energy, or calm, or sleep, but sometimes they deliver something else entirely. Maybe it's a dry mouth that won't quit, or a headache that lasts longer than the original complaint. Maybe your hands tremble as you thread your pearls, or your heart beats a jittery tattoo when you're simply folding towels. The warnings are written in tiny print, may cause drowsiness, nervousness, or fainting, as if they're afterthoughts, no more serious than a bit of smudged mascara. Still, you keep the bottle front and centre. There's status in being medicated, in needing the things that only a prescription can provide. My doctor recommended it, you say over bridge or coffee, and everyone nods in envy. A prescription is proof that you're being taken seriously, that your struggles aren't just nerves or imagination. You savour the small thrill of explaining the instructions to your husband, who squints at the label and says, "If the doctor says so." Sometimes, late at night, you run your fingers over the bottles and try to remember a time when health was something you didn't have to manage so carefully. When medicine was a spoonful of cherry syrup, not an array of adult-only elixirs with French-sounding names. The bathroom shelf has become your own little apothecary, equal parts sanctuary and trap. Yet, in the daylight, with the vanity bathed in the soft glow of optimism, you keep believing in the dream. The prescription pad is a kind of fairy godmother, and for a few hours after each pill, you feel as lovely and composed as the women in the ads. It's only later, as the side effects settle in, that you remember glamour is sometimes only skin deep, and peace of mind is a luxury no bottle can truly guarantee. Next up, let's open the door to the world of doctor-approved anxiety, where every fret and worry becomes a diagnosable, treatable condition, and every prescription comes with a side of modern validation. Every worry, from burned meatloaf to existential dread, comes with a recommended dosage. If you're not anxious, are you even doing your job? The pharmacy is your real confessional, just with less judgment and better lighting. In the post-war sprawl of suburbia, anxiety is as common as dandelions and twice as persistent. It slips through the cracks in your Formica countertops, settles in the laundry basket and blooms behind the polite smiles of every neighbour you meet. Perfection is the expected standard, and anything less is simply something to be managed. Enter the new world of medicalised feelings, a place where nerves aren't a character flaw but a prescription waiting to happen. The shift is everywhere, in magazine columns, radio jingles, and especially in the examining room. Your doctor doesn't ask if you're worried, he assumes you are. It's the price of progress, after all. Burn the meatloaf for the second time this week? Take 2 tablets. Kids fighting again? Try this syrup for female tension. Feeling a creeping sense of dread about your life's purpose? There's a pill for that now. Blue, pink, or pastel yellow, take your pick. Each anxiety has a pharmaceutical twin, each ache a corresponding capsule. It's oddly comforting, this diagnosis of the soul. What used to be brushed aside as just nerves is now elevated to a medical issue. Your mother survived on grit and hard candy, but you have options. A helpful man in a white coat, a pharmacist who greets you by name, and a universe of new drugs with names so cheerful they almost sound like pets. Librium, Serax, Milltown. Just whispering them at Bridge Club is enough to start a chorus of knowing nods. You become an expert in symptoms and solutions. You keep a little notebook in your purse, jotting down dosages and times, cross-referencing side effects with the latest article in Good Housekeeping. The pharmacy is the modern church of suburbia, a gathering place where women linger in the aisles, comparing notes about which tablets truly take the edge off. The pharmacist is equal parts priest, therapist, and bartender, always ready with advice, discretion, and a free sample or 2 tucked into your paper bag. Here, you confess your exhaustion, your frustration, your low-key fear of failing at the only job society tells you you're supposed to love. You're not alone, he says, sliding your order across the counter. And for a minute, you almost believe him. At home, the medicine cabinet becomes a gallery of worries conquered, or at least suppressed. Each bottle, each label, each line of instructions is a talisman against the daily barrage of disappointment and doubt. Anxiety has gone from a shadowy shame to a badge of responsibility, a sign that you're invested, that you care. If you weren't worried, wouldn't that mean you'd stop trying? So you pop a pill, take a breath, and soldier on. Of course, not everyone buys into the new gospel. Your mother-in-law sniffs that we never needed any of that nonsense. She says it's all in your head. But you know your head is the whole problem, and for once the experts agree. The magazine ads say it's normal, even healthy, to admit you need a little help. And isn't that the promise of modern life? No more suffering in silence, no more stoic swallowing of pain. Instead, you get a prescription, a small nod from science, and the feeling that maybe, just maybe, you're not completely alone. Still, sometimes the solutions feel like another burden, a new standard to live up to, another score to keep. You measure your success in pills taken and crises averted, anxieties soothed, and meltdowns postponed. But even as you worry about worrying, you find a strange comfort in the routine. The pharmacy light glows warm on your way home, another bottle, another badge. In the suburbs, anxiety isn't just inevitable, it's practically a requirement for membership. Next up, let's pour a spoonful of the children's cough syrup, where the recommended dosage is just enough to keep everyone quiet, and the real secret ingredient is plausible deniability. Your child's got a cough. Here's a syrup that could knock out a grown man. You pour a careful teaspoon, then wonder if it's wrong to wish you could have a little yourself. Spoiler, sometimes you do. It's 1955, and the medicine cabinet contains marvels of modern science, and a few things that would make today's paediatricians faint. The kid wakes up with a dry cough, and you're already dreading a day of whining, hacking, and pitiful looks that threaten to shatter your last nerve. Luckily, you have the ultimate secret weapon. Cough syrup that's as thick as molasses and nearly as potent as a shot of whiskey. The bottle claims it's specially formulated for children, but you know from experience that children is a flexible term. Anyone under 80, really. You read the label, just a hint of cartoon animals and promises of fast, gentle relief, but somewhere, buried in the ingredients, is the real muscle: codeine. In the 1950s, codeine isn't just for serious pain. It's for coughs, sniffles, growing pains, and let's be honest, helping a house full of children sleep through the night when your nerves are already shot. 1 teaspoon is all it takes. You pour it carefully, because even though the directions say as needed, you've seen what happens when Grandma gets generous with the measuring spoon. The transformation is almost instant. The cough quiets, the eyelids droop, and a blessed hush falls over the house. It's a little bit miraculous. You have time to sweep the floor, switch over the laundry, and maybe, if you're lucky, sip a cup of coffee before the next crisis erupts. The kid sleeps like an angel, and you wonder how anyone survived parenting before codeine syrup became a household staple. There's a certain solidarity in knowing your friends up and down the block have the same amber bottle, the same hidden hope that relief is just a spoonful away. But it's not just for the kids. After a day spent refereeing squabbles, scrubbing crayon off the wallpaper, and listening to the same song played over and over on the living room record player, your own throat starts to tickle. Maybe it's sympathy pain. Maybe it's a little something else. Anxiety, frustration, or just the overwhelming need for silence. The thought creeps in. Just a taste. Just a little. You open the bottle, the sweet medicinal scent rising up, and pour a tiny sip for yourself. It's smooth, cloying, oddly reassuring. In 5 minutes the world is softer, the house quieter, and the edges of your exhaustion gently blurred. There's a quiet understanding among mothers. No one talks about their nightcap of children's cough syrup, but everyone recognizes the glazed, peaceful look of a woman who's finally found a moment of rest. The ads never mention this secondary use. They show smiling children and rested mothers, everyone in pastel pajamas and freshly ironed sheets. No one ever looks frazzled, desperate, or on the verge of tears. Of course, the codeine miracle isn't without its perils. There's the morning after, when everyone is groggy, slow to wake, and vaguely suspicious of what happened the night before. There's the creeping guilt. Should you really be giving your kids something this strong? Should you really be sneaking a taste for yourself? But guilt is a luxury for people with nannies and soundproof walls. The rest of you get by with whatever works. As you tuck the bottle back into the medicine cabinet, you make a silent promise to use it only when absolutely necessary, which, in the 1950s, turns out to be more often than you'd ever admit. The door closes, and the house, for the moment, is peaceful. You know you'll revisit this ritual, maybe not tonight, but soon. Because in a world where everything is supposed to be under control, sometimes you need a little help from a syrupy secret to keep it together. Next up, let's talk about Dad's hangover cure and why you're always one step ahead when it comes to disguising your own brand of relief. You let him think the Alka-Seltzer is for his headaches. Really, it's a cover for the small blue pill you keep for your monthly visitor and sometimes your monthly existential crisis. There's a familiar routine in every 1950s kitchen: Saturday night poker, Sunday morning regret. The husband wakes up groaning, asking for his Alka-Seltzer, and you oblige, dropping the fizzy tablet into a glass with practiced grace. He grins, takes a sip and retreats to the couch, unaware that the real magic in your medicine cabinet isn't for him. Your own little bottle, tucked behind the cough syrup and the stale menthol rub, contains something far more precious: the small, mysterious blue pills your doctor prescribed just in case. He wrote the script in the same cheerful penmanship he uses for your neighbour's diet pills and your friend's calming drops. These pills are a quiet revolution. On the label they're for feminine discomfort or monthly malaise, but everyone knows they do far more than ease cramps. They're for headaches, sleeplessness, heartbreak, and all the daily aches that come with being everything to everyone all the time. You're told they're a necessity, a modern convenience, as vital as a dishwasher or a vacuum. The catch? Nobody talks about them, especially not in mixed company. Your husband never wonders why your visitor coincides with an urgent need for naps and solitary walks. He doesn't ask about your mood swings, or why the blue pills make you a little glassy-eyed and much, much quieter. You play along with the hangover routine. He rattles the Alka-Seltzer box, you nod and fuss, and he never notices how often you slip away with your own glass of water. On especially rough mornings, when your headache lingers well after the aspirin wears off, you stare at the blue pill in your palm and debate: is this really for pain, or is it for the ache that no one else seems to see? Sometimes, you wish you could drop one in his glass. Let him feel what it's like to chase comfort in a world that always expects you to be fine. The Alka-Seltzer is a decoy, a performance. You keep it well stocked, knowing it buys you cover, a little space to tend to your own struggles. After all, nobody expects a mother, wife and queen of the casserole circuit to unravel. You're meant to breeze through every rough patch with grace and a dusting of face powder. If you need chemical assistance, you'd better keep it quiet. And what's quieter than a blue pill washed down in the bathroom, door locked, the only witness the whir of the exhaust fan? These little blue pills are a lifeline for more than just cramps. Some days, the weight of expectation presses so hard you feel it in your bones. The bottle promises you can make it to dinner through the carpool, past another round of passive-aggressive PTA notes. The pharmacy calls them a modern solution, but what they really are is a whispered permission. It's okay to not be okay, as long as you don't make a scene. You tell yourself it's not hiding, it's just being careful. You're protecting your privacy, your pride, your fragile ability to get through the week without falling apart in front of the children. When your husband asks why you're tired, you smile and hand him another glass of Alka-Seltzer. He never asks what's in your glass. He never will. At the end of the day, you line up the bottles in the cabinet, your own little pharmacy hidden in plain sight. There's the Alka-Seltzer, the cough syrup, and the real prize, the blue pills that carry you through every monthly storm, every Sunday scuffle, every private battle you never quite put into words. In a world where your pain is invisible, the only cure is the one you keep to yourself, and you do because no one's going to hand it to you. Next up, let's talk about what really goes into that lemonade at Tupperware parties, and how a pinch of something special can make even the longest demonstration fly by in a fizzy pastel haze. Not every pitcher of lemonade is created equal. At the right party, you know someone's added a dash of something extra, just enough to make you forget the demonstration lasts 3 hours. Tupperware parties in the 1950s are an event unto themselves. You arrive in your crisply ironed dress, carrying a plate of finger sandwiches and the polite forced excitement of someone who knows she'll be guilted into buying at least 2 pastel containers and a pie server you don't need. The living room is rearranged, folding chairs borrowed from the church, magazines fanned out just so, and, centre stage, a pitcher of ice-cold lemonade sweating lightly on a tray. But it's what you can't see that really matters. At the right house, hosted by the right woman, the lemonade is a little cloudier, a little sweeter, and promises a far more interesting afternoon. As the demonstration begins, you find your place among the other ladies, nodding along as the Tupperware rep clicks and snaps lids with the precision of a bomb technician. She extols the virtues of the burping seal, the unbreakable tumbler, and the stackable salad keeper, all while you sip your lemonade and feel a subtle warmth blooming behind your eyes. Hydrating, someone murmurs. Delicious, says another. No one says spiked, but you catch the sly looks, the half smiles, and the little ritual of hostess pouring herself the first glass, swirling the ice to make sure the special ingredient is evenly distributed. The mood shifts almost imperceptibly. What starts as nervous laughter over the proper way to store celery turns into real giggles. Mrs. Perkins at the end of the couch begins a whispered running commentary, rating the Tupperware colours like a judge at the Miss America pageant. The hostess, buoyed by her own concoction, is suddenly bolder in her sales pitch, telling you that your leftovers will stay fresh well into the next decade, as if time itself could be tamed by a tight-fitting lid. You take another sip and the edges of the room blur a little. The demonstration drones on. There's always a new gadget, a new promise of domestic efficiency. In your haze, you almost believe her. Yes, you do need a moulded Jell-O ring carrier. Yes, the lettuce crisper will in fact solve your marital problems. The special lemonade is a social contract. It says, we're all in this together, trapped in an endless loop of parties, products and politeness. If we have to endure the burping of bowls, we might as well do it a little tipsy, a little mellow, a little less in touch with the reality of another stack of plastic we'll never use. It's not just about fun. For many, it's the only time all week when someone else watches the kids, when you can sit in a room full of women who know exactly how exhausting it is to appear perfect. The lemonade isn't just lemonade. It's a soft rebellion, a tiny dose of freedom poured between advertisements for butter dishes. By the time the order forms make their rounds, everyone's a little more generous, a little more inclined to add a cake decorator or two to the order. What's another $1 when you're floating on a cloud of secret solidarity? After the last snap lid is demonstrated and the rep packs away her display, the party dissolves in a gentle wave of gratitude, giggles and sticky-fingered handshakes. You help clean up, sneak a last glass of lemonade, and catch yourself smiling for no reason at all. When you step outside, the sun is brighter, your purse is heavier, and the day seems suddenly manageable. The special lemonade's real magic is the way it transforms the ordinary. A Tupperware party, a routine afternoon, a living room full of women, into a sanctuary, if only for a moment. Next up, let's talk about the arsenal of pills for every household chore, and how the war on fatigue is fought one tablet and one spotless floor at a time. There's a pill for sweeping, a pill for scrubbing, a pill for pretending you care about soap operas. By dinner you've forgotten your own name, but the silverware sparkles and the roast is only slightly burnt. Fatigue in the 1950s is a household epidemic, quiet, relentless, and always brushed aside with a forced smile. The magazines show women in aprons, faces aglow, conquering dust bunnies with grace and verve, but your reality is more war zone than Wonderland. After the third load of laundry, the joy of housework has faded into the same background hum as the Maytag agitator. You glance at the kitchen clock, hours to go before you can collapse. Luckily you have options, and they come in a kaleidoscope of colours. Amphetamines for the morning rush, caffeine for the after-lunch slog, a mild sedative for the late afternoon crash. Every pharmacy trip is like a military supply run, each new prescription a secret weapon in the ongoing war against exhaustion. You line up the bottles on the shelf, mentally assigning each one to its own battlefield. The pink tablet, that's for floors. The yellow capsule, windows. The white one that looks like a breath mint, that's for when you have to fake enthusiasm over today's thrilling episode of As the World Turns. The ritual is nearly automatic. Sweep, pop a pill, dust, pop a different pill, and so on. Sometimes you catch yourself forgetting which one you took and when, so you improvise, trusting the gentle hum that settles into your muscles and lets you press on. The point isn't to feel good, it's to keep going. There's always one more thing on the list. Always a stray fingerprint, a missed crumb, a deadline only you notice. The house sparkles. You, on the other hand, are starting to lose the plot. You're not alone in this chemical choreography. The secret gets passed from woman to woman, whispered at the grocery store or over a neighbour's fence. Try the blue ones for windows. If you want to clean the baseboards, take half a green. Advice is always exchanged with a wink and a note of caution. Don't take the yellow ones too late, or you'll be up all night, rearranging the canned goods alphabetically. By mid-afternoon, your mind is racing ahead of your hands. You find yourself cleaning behind the stove, humming along with the radio, then scrubbing the doorknobs just in case company comes by. Each task brings a tiny, fleeting sense of accomplishment, quickly replaced by the anxiety that maybe, just maybe, you missed a spot. The pills take the edge off your fatigue, but they sharpen your focus until you're not sure if you're being efficient or just obsessive. The price for all this productivity comes due around dinner time. You stand at the stove, mind buzzing, the day's details smeared together. The roast is slightly burnt, the carrots are overcooked, and you're pretty sure you promised someone Jell-O salad but can't remember who. You serve dinner with a smile, laugh off the singed edges, and pretend not to notice that your hands are trembling as you pass the gravy. The family, as always, is blissfully unaware of your behind-the-scenes performance. When the dishes are done and the lights are out, you finally allow yourself to collapse on the couch, limbs heavy, brain humming with static. You know you'll do it all again tomorrow. The bottles wait patiently on the shelf, your silent squadron ready to march at a moment's notice. You wonder just for a moment what it would be like to face a day without them, but the thought drifts away, replaced by tomorrow's to-do list. Next up, let's talk about faking a migraine, because sometimes the only way to call a timeout is to claim defeat and retreat to a quiet, dark room with your best bottle and the world's oldest excuse. Some days you just can't. You shut the bedroom door, lower the shades, and produce a bottle labelled for migraine, take with caution. It's not your head that hurts, it's reality. There are afternoons when the walls feel like they're closing in, the kids sound like a brass band tuning up for a parade, and even the dog seems to be judging you. In the 1950s, there aren't many legitimate reasons for a woman to remove herself from duty. Sick days are for husbands, not housewives. But a migraine? Now that's sacred territory, mysterious, untouchable, and always respected. You can't measure a migraine, can't prove it's not real, and no one, not even the most determined child, will risk incurring your wrath by suggesting it's anything less than torture. So you become an actress. The first step is subtle. A hand to the forehead, a far-off look in your eyes, maybe a slight wince as the clock chimes or a drawer slams. The children pause, sensing something's off. You murmur about your bad head and shuffle toward the bedroom. Your husband, seeing the look, knows the drill. He might offer some half-hearted sympathy before happily retreating to his armchair and newspaper, crisis averted. Once in your sanctuary, you draw the curtains, muffling the sunlight and the chaos. The bottle comes out, tiny, brown, and stamped with a warning that looks almost official. For migraine, take with caution. The pills are chalky and taste like surrender, but you swallow one with a glass of water and settle into bed, letting the silence wash over you. Sometimes you really do get headaches. Who wouldn't, with everything you juggle? But today it's not pain you're running from. It's the sheer exhaustion of holding it together. You let yourself drift, enjoying the novelty of stillness. No one is asking you to referee a squabble, sign a permission slip, or scrub out the sink. For once, you're not Mom, Honey, or Mrs. Jenkins from PTA. You're just a woman in need of a break. The world slows, and you finally exhale. There's a certain art to timing your migraine. Too early in the day, and suspicions arise, too late, and you miss the window of plausible deniability. The trick is to pick a moment when everyone else is distracted, right after lunch, say, when the house is at its loudest, and you can slip away unnoticed. If you're especially clever, you hint at an oncoming migraine the day before. I hope I'm not getting one of my headaches. It sets the stage, plants the seed, and by the time you make your exit, everyone expects you to vanish. Behind closed doors, you find a little peace. Sometimes you really do nap. Other times you lie awake, enjoying the faint hum of the house and the knowledge that for at least an hour no one will interrupt. The bottle on the nightstand is both prop and lifeline. If anyone peeks in, you groan for effect. If the phone rings, you let it. Your absence is justified, unassailable. Even the neighbours know better than to stop by when she's got one of her migraines. Eventually the sun sets, the house quiets, and your headache lifts. You emerge looking wan and delicate, which is to say, perfectly normal for a woman who just spent an hour alone. No one questions your absence. If anything, they're a little more sympathetic, a little less demanding. The kids keep their voices down. Your husband makes his own sandwich. For a brief moment, you're treated like a patient instead of a perpetual motion machine. Tomorrow, you'll return to the routine. The kitchen will need cleaning, the laundry will multiply, and the world will expect you to keep smiling. But tonight, thanks to your expertly faked migraine and a conveniently vague prescription, you got what every housewife in America secretly craves: a break from reality, no explanation required. Next up, let's dig into the scandal of children's vitamins, those cheerful little pills that promise health but deliver a sugar rush and enough iron to make the family dog magnetic. Did you know half the kids' vitamins contain more sugar than a candy bar and enough iron to forge a horseshoe? You do now, but you keep buying them because a healthy child is a quiet child, If you were to empty out a 1950s medicine cabinet and line up the bottles, there'd be one constant: the cheerful, cartoon-shaped children's vitamins promising a future free from colds, cavities, and presumably rebellion. The bottles are pastel, the labels cheery, cavorting bears, wide-eyed fish, maybe a winking rocket ship, and every mother you know has one stashed between the cough syrup and the cod liver oil. There's even a little jingle for them on the radio. Strong and smart with every part, vitamins are the healthy start. You hum it as you dole out the daily dose, resisting the urge to eat one yourself. The science behind these miracle morsels is, at best, creative. The ads show bright, sturdy children with gleaming teeth, perfectly parted hair, and an air of effortless compliance. The fine print, meanwhile, could make a dentist weep and a blacksmith take notes. These vitamins are packed with sugar, sometimes the first ingredient listed if you bother to read the label at all. Some are tart and tangy, others so sweet they double as dessert. The secret: if it tastes like a treat, your kids will line up for it, beg for it even. The only risk is running out before the next grocery run and facing the mutiny of tiny sugar-fueled pirates demanding their daily fix. Iron is another story. There's plenty in each tablet, enough, if the rumours are true, to supplement a small anvil factory. Why so much? Somewhere in a lab coat-filled office, someone decided that more must be better, and now you find yourself checking your kids for rusty joints and magnetic attraction. If Junior starts picking up loose change with his elbows, you know who to blame. There's a ritual to the vitamin handout. You call the kids to the kitchen, line them up by height, and dispense a tablet with a flourish and a stern warning. Just one a day. As if anyone could resist a second helping of what's essentially medical-grade candy. There's always the sneaky sibling who tries to double dip, sneaking another tablet when your back is turned. You can't blame them. You've caught yourself eyeing the bottle after a particularly stressful morning, wondering if a pink elephant-shaped tablet would do anything for adult nerves. Of course, you buy the vitamins for peace of mind as much as for health. Every mother worries about colds, about picky eaters, about children who seem to thrive on a diet of crusts and complaints. The vitamins are a small reassurance, a promise that you're doing your best. If they also guarantee a minute of silence and a few sticky smiles, so much the better. You chat about them with the other mothers at the park, comparing flavours and iron counts like sommeliers at a wine tasting. The grape ones make Billy bounce off the walls. Sally likes the orange, but she gets nosebleeds if she eats too. You know, somewhere deep down, that this is just another piece of the 1950s motherhood puzzle, a little scam wrapped in bright colours and doctor-recommended assurance. But the world is full of bigger scams, and at least this one comes with a side of quiet compliance. You stash the bottle away and tick vitamins off the list, knowing that, for today, you've done your part. Tomorrow you'll do it again, another tablet, another sugar rush, another sigh of relief. Because in the endless quest for healthy, happy children, you take your victories where you can find them, even if they're shaped like circus animals and packed with enough sugar and iron to start a small industrial revolution. Next up, let's peer into the world of home chemistry, where neighbourly advice and questionable kitchen concoctions collide, and every bottle in your cabinet tells a slightly different story of hope, desperation, and optimism. Your neighbour swears by cod liver oil. Your mother-in-law recommends whiskey for teething. By noon, you've created a cocktail of folk remedies, FDA warnings, and pure optimism. In the 1950s, the kitchen is as much a laboratory as a place to make dinner. Before the internet, before you could Google every symptom and dosage, you relied on advice passed down through generations, half superstition, half science experiment, and all delivered with absolute confidence. The medicine cabinet might be lined with prescription bottles and modern marvels, but the real action happens at the kitchen table, surrounded by recipe cards stained with bacon grease, and the wisdom of women who've seen it all. Every problem has at least 3 solutions, none of them entirely trustworthy. Your neighbour, Mrs. Greeley, is a firm believer in cod liver oil, swearing it can cure everything from rickets to a bad attitude. She lines up her children every morning and doles out spoonfuls with military precision, ignoring the chorus of gags and protests. It builds character, she says, as if strong character can overcome the taste of cold fish. If you ask her for proof, she'll tell you her great-uncle lived to 92 and only ever missed church for the Spanish flu. Meanwhile, your mother-in-law has her own ideas, most of which involve whiskey. Rub a little on the gums for teething, add a splash to the bottle for colic, she insists. winking as she pours herself a medicinal shot. You're pretty sure her remedies are as much about keeping the adults calm as soothing the children. She's never met an ailment that can't be solved with a hot toddy and a nap. By noon, you've compiled advice from every direction. Someone recommends honey for a cough. Someone else insists on garlic poultices for earaches. The radio says never give aspirin to children, while your aunt in Des Moines still posts the stuff in birthday cards. There's a recipe for homemade cough syrup on a scrap of paper, lemon, vinegar, baking soda, and just enough sugar to make you question whether it's medicine or marinade. You try it all, mixing, measuring, hoping for a little magic. The kitchen smells like a cross between a candy factory and a hardware store, every surface sticky with hope and desperation. FDA warnings are a new and distant concern, printed in fine print on pamphlets you throw away with the grocery ads. You hear whispers about new regulations, but in a world where polio is still a summer spectre and antibiotics are considered nearly miraculous, the rules are just another suggestion. If something works, it works. If it doesn't, you keep experimenting. You're a housewife, but you're also a part-time chemist, always looking for the next breakthrough to keep your family healthy and yourself sane. The real secret to home chemistry is optimism. Maybe the cod liver oil is just a ritual. Maybe the whiskey does more for you than the baby. But every drop, every dose is a gesture of care. You swap remedies with other mothers at the park, compare notes at PTA meetings, and accept that sometimes the most important ingredient is the belief that you're doing something, anything, to help. You marvel at your ability to create a child-calming syrup from ingredients found in the back of the cupboard, to invent a poultice for a rash using little more than flour and wishful thinking. Of course, not all remedies are created equal. There's the occasional disaster, the honey cough syrup that turns into glue, the vinegar compress that smells so bad the child actually gets up and goes to school just to escape it. But even the failures are part of the tradition, stories to be shared and laughed about over coffee and cake. You take pride in the creativity, the resourcefulness, the refusal to simply wait for the doctor to call back. At the end of the day, you tuck the children in with a dose of something store-bought, homemade, or blessed by your mother-in-law, and congratulate yourself on another successful experiment. You know tomorrow will bring a fresh batch of ailments and advice, a new list of things to mix, measure, and pray over, and you'll face it all, wooden spoon in hand, ready to try again. Because in the 1950s, every housewife is a chemist, and hope, as always, is the main ingredient. Next up, let's talk about beauty sleep, or more accurately, the over-the-counter sedatives that promise peaceful dreams and a fresh face in the morning, but sometimes deliver a night you'll never quite remember. At night, when everyone's asleep, you pop a little white tablet promising beauty sleep. You wake up groggy, confused, and with a vague sense that you dreamt in Technicolor. Sleep in the 1950s is more marketing campaign than medical necessity. Magazine ads are filled with glamorous women reclining on satin pillows, their hair perfect, their skin glowing, eyes closed in the peace that only 8 undisturbed hours, and, let's be honest, a little pharmaceutical help can bring. Wake refreshed. The ads proclaim, next to a picture of a nightstand crowded with creams, tissues, and an elegant bottle of sleeping pills. Never mind that every woman who actually manages to get a full night's sleep does so with chemical assistance and a locked bedroom door. You keep your bottle in the nightstand, behind a dog-eared novel, and an old tube of lipstick right where your husband can't see it. The label is cheerful, for restful slumber, as if all it takes to overcome the endless parade of midnight worries is a friendly font and a dash of confidence. You pop one as you brush your teeth, wash your face, and stare into the mirror, searching for signs of fatigue. You're always tired, but you're also always in motion, and sleep has become less about rest and more about surrender. As the house finally quiets, children snoring, radios off, the refrigerators hum the only sound left, you slip into bed, tablet dissolving on your tongue. Within 20 minutes your body sinks, your thoughts blur, and you are at last released from the endless mental list of chores, complaints, and half-finished conversations. The dream world arrives in a rush. Everything is brighter, stranger, and inexplicably more colourful than reality. You float through scenes where you're always on time, always dressed, always perfectly composed. There are no burnt roasts or unpaid bills here, only gleaming kitchens and the eternal promise of being enough. But the morning is never quite as pretty. You wake up with a tongue that feels like it spent the night under the radiator, and an ache behind your eyes that tells you the beauty part of beauty sleep is open to interpretation. Your dreams linger, half-remembered and oddly vivid. Did you really win the State Fair pie contest? Or did you just watch the dog fly the neighbour's airplane? It's hard to say. The world is a little fuzzier, the bed a little too comfortable, and your body a split second behind your brain all morning long. Still, you go through the motions, pancakes for the kids, coffee for yourself, a quick swipe of lipstick to cover the sleepless look. You mutter that you didn't sleep well, and the other mothers nod in sympathetic understanding, but no one asks for details. They're all running on the same fuzzy autopilot, having traded restful nights for pharmaceutical shortcuts. The side effects, sluggishness, fogginess, the occasional bout of sleepwalking are the price of admission to a world where a woman is expected to be everything, do everything, and still greet the day with a smile. The promise of beauty sleep is seductive, though. The bottle stays close at hand, its cheerful label a nightly invitation to escape the realities of the day. Some nights you skip it, trying to tough it out with chamomile tea or deep breathing. Those nights you lie awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the clock tick and the world spin. You always come back to the little white tablet, though, because surrendering to sleep, no matter how artificial, feels like an act of self-care. At the end of the day, you tuck the bottle back in the drawer, smooth your pillow, and hope that tomorrow's dreams are at least as gentle as tonight's medicine. In the 1950s, every woman deserves a little magic before the morning alarm, even if the real miracle is just making it to breakfast. Next up, let's talk about the great menopause mystery, how hormone pills, wishful thinking, and a bridge club full of secrets came together to help a generation of women keep calm, carry on, and sweat through summer in full makeup. Hot flashes, mood swings, there's a pill for that, and your doctor's thrilled to write the prescription. No one talks about the side effects except at bridge club where secrets are currency. Menopause in the 1950s is something whispered about, a phase cloaked in mystery and mild dread, as if it's a passing storm you simply endure in silence and a haze of Chanel number. 5. There's no instruction manual for the change, just a steady stream of unsolicited advice, and the vague suggestion that, somehow, you'll know what to do when it happens. Most women only recognize it by the sudden urge to stand in front of an open freezer, or the unexplainable desire to throw a shoe at their husband's snoring form. You make the appointment with Dr. Morrison, who, as usual, is delighted to see you, and even more delighted to prescribe something new. Modern medicine is a marvel, he beams, scribbling out a prescription for little white tablets, or maybe a shiny pink pill, each promising to restore balance, grace, and a reasonably stable body temperature. He doesn't ask many questions, just a sympathetic look, a nod, and a gentle, "Let's get you comfortable." You nod back, grateful and just a little suspicious. After all, if medicine really could make you serene and sweat-free, wouldn't there be a statue to estrogen in every city park by now? You leave the pharmacy with a discreet paper bag, feeling like a member of an exclusive club. The label reads hormone replacement, as if you've simply run out like flour or sugar, and can now restock with the help of science. You take your pill with breakfast, right between the orange juice and the nerve tonic, and wait for equilibrium to be restored. Some days it works like a charm. You sail through the morning, cool and collected, sailing past hot flashes, mood swings, and the existential terror that someone will discover you've thrown away your husband's favourite socks. But there are days when the cure feels suspiciously like a new problem. Your skin tingles, your ankles swell, and there's a buzzing undercurrent of nerves that no amount of bridge or beauty sleep can quiet. The magazines never mention these side effects. According to the ads, menopause is a gentle slide into wisdom and grace. Your hair will silver, your laughter will deepen, and you'll finally get to be the mysterious aunt who keeps a flask in her purse. The truth, as you learn from the seasoned veterans at Bridge Club, is considerably messier. Bridge Club is where the real education happens. The table is a confessional, and the currency is candour. "How's your prescription?" someone asks, shuffling cards with hands that tremble just a little. Eyes dart, heads nod. I get headaches. I haven't slept in a week. My ankles are the size of Christmas hams. The laughter is genuine, relieved, conspiratorial. Here, it's safe to admit that you have no idea what's happening inside your own body, that the miracle pill sometimes makes you feel worse than before. Still, you keep taking it. What's the alternative? Fans, ice packs, and hoping no one notices you've started wearing linen in November. You compare notes, tweak your regimen, and cling to the hope that tomorrow will be the day it all settles down. If nothing else, You now have an excuse for forgetting names, losing your keys, and bursting into tears over a dropped meatloaf. Hormones, you sigh and everyone understands. At the end of the day, you tuck your prescription bottle next to the others, another secret in a cabinet full of silent allies. Menopause remains a mystery, less a chapter in life, and more an unsolvable riddle. But with a pill in your pocket and a circle of women who truly get it, you carry on, sweating, laughing, and living proof that modern medicine may not have all the answers, but it sure helps you fake it. Next up, let's open the silverware drawer and discover why every woman you know hides her pills, and how secrecy became just another household chore. Every woman you know hides her pills. In the silverware drawer, the flower bin, the glove box. It's not shame, it's survival. Because if he asks too many questions, you might actually have to answer. Secrecy is as much a part of 1950s domestic life as Tupperware and creamed soup. In a world that asks women to be everything, a nurse, a maid, a gourmet chef, a model wife, and a full-time therapist, no one ever asks how you manage to do it all. They just assume you'll figure it out, preferably with a smile and a little lipstick. So you build your own insurance policy, one bottle at a time, and tuck it away where no one else will look. There are the obvious hiding places, behind the canned peaches, in the coffee tin, or next to the pie weights you haven't used since the Eisenhower inauguration. But the truly seasoned housewife develops a sixth sense for secrecy. A few pills nestled in the glove box for tough errands, a bottle tucked into your purse's inner pocket for stressful days at the doctor's office, a tin disguised as mints in the sewing basket. You become your own pharmacist and security guard, because privacy, in a house built for togetherness, is something you have to claim for yourself. It's not about deceit, at least not in the way men mean it. It's about protecting your right to relief in a world that isn't built for your needs. The husbands in the neighbourhood, with their tidy briefcases and Saturday afternoon lawn rituals, have no idea what goes into running a home. They don't see the marathon of keeping everyone clothed, fed, and at least marginally content. They don't hear the whisper networks over the phone, the coded language at bridge club, the sighs of relief when someone says, "I've got something that'll help, just don't let my husband see." If your husband ever does find a bottle, maybe while looking for his missing cufflinks, he might ask with a mix of confusion and mild suspicion, "What's this for?" That's the moment you prepare for. A quick, rehearsed answer that's just vague enough to stop further questions. It's for my nerves. It's doctor's orders. It's for women's problems. He doesn't want details. He wants reassurance that nothing is about to upset the smooth surface of domestic bliss. The secrecy isn't just about avoiding awkward questions. It's about preserving the illusion that you are coping, that everything is under control, that you don't need help, or, at the very least, that you can secure your own. The world is full of little indignities, big disappointments, and the daily weight of other people's needs. Pills are a way to snatch a sliver of power, to draw a boundary no one else can cross. In a way, every hidden bottle is a quiet act of resistance. Of course, you share your secrets with other women. The best hiding spots are traded like recipes. Try the flour bin, he never bakes. The silverware drawer, just don't use the good silver, or he'll notice. There's comfort in knowing you're not alone, that every immaculate home on the block is also a network of secret stashes and whispered confessions. No one judges, if anything. They admire your creativity. And in those rare moments when someone does get caught, when a bottle falls out of a purse or clatters to the floor during a bridge game, everyone looks away and pretends not to notice. That's solidarity. You don't need to explain. Everyone understands that in a world built by and for men, a woman's survival sometimes means keeping her solutions to herself. At the end of another long day, you check your hiding places, count your supply, and feel a little rush of satisfaction. You've protected your lifelines, secured your secrets, and preserved the delicate balance that keeps the household spinning. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new reasons to reach for help, and, most likely, new places to hide it. Because until the world asks women what they really need, you'll keep your answers carefully tucked away, right next to the cake flour and the good intentions. Next up, let's talk about the perils of mixing, when the do not combine label gets ignored and a tranquilizer martini combo leads to a night you'll never quite remember, or live down. You know you're not supposed to mix, but sometimes, after a day of children, chores, and neighbourhood politics, you do. The result? A pleasant haze, a nap in the bathtub, and a story you'll never tell. The warnings are everywhere. tucked discreetly on the back of prescription bottles and whispered at the pharmacy counter, "Do not combine with alcohol." But in the hush of late afternoon, after a day spent refereeing squabbles and scrubbing crayon out of the drapes, those words start to feel like more of a suggestion than a rule. There's just something about the combination of exhaustion, simmering resentment, and the soft promise of cocktail hour that makes you think, just this once, it'll be fine. The ritual is oddly soothing. You set the children in front of the television with a bowl of popcorn and slip away to the kitchen. The shaker comes out, gin sloshes over ice, and a jar of olives is speared with the focus of someone who needs a tiny victory. The first sip is sharp, bracing, almost medicinal, just enough to take the edge off. You linger at the sink, the quiet clink of glass against counter almost meditative, and reach for the little bottle in the cabinet above the stove. The tranquilizer is tiny, unassuming, but potent enough to make the next round of "Why don't you ever listen to me?" bearable. A few minutes later, the world begins to melt at the edges. The laundry pile in the hallway loses its menace, the dog's barking fades into background static, and your own pulse slows to something resembling peace. You catch your reflection in the window, a little pink in the cheeks, a bit of sparkle in the eyes. For a brief, glorious stretch of time, you feel like you're floating, insulated from the constant demands of 1950s domesticity. If the martini is a quick vacation, the tranquilizer is a set of noise-cancelling headphones for the soul. Of course, there are side effects. Sometimes you nod off in the bathtub, water cooling around you as your mind drifts through technicolor dreams of Tupperware parties and perfectly behaved children. Sometimes you wake to find you've eaten half a box of crackers, or attempted to reorganize the linen closet by color, only to abandon the project halfway through. The next morning you nurse a strange headache and the nagging fear that you may have confessed too much to the neighbour during your post-martini fence chat. The real peril, of course, isn't the hangover or the drowsiness, it's the stories that begin to circulate. Someone's husband mentions he found his wife napping in the car, engine off, a paperback splayed across her chest. At bridge club, there's laughter over a tale of Mrs. Lewis serenading the milkman from her porch, a martini glass balanced precariously on the banister. No one says the word mixing, but everyone knows. You exchange glances with the other women, the unspoken pact as clear as the ice in your drink. We've all been there, and none of us is talking. Still, the line between managing and escaping blurs a little more each week. The bottles in your cabinet multiply, their labels a secret code. One for nerves, one for sleep, one for the kind of anxiety that comes from burning dinner and forgetting picture day. The martini shaker earns its own spot on the shelf, right next to the family recipe box. At the end of the day, you tell yourself it's only occasional, that tomorrow you'll stick to lemonade and aspirin. But as the sun sets and the house quiets, the temptation lingers. A little relief, a little rebellion, a chance to forget. In a world that demands perfection, sometimes the only way to make it through is to mix, muddle, and find your own kind of happy hour. Just don't ask what's in the glass. Next up, let's thumb through the endless parade of modern science advertisements, where every new pill or gadget promises a shortcut to happiness and the subtle threat of being left behind if you don't keep up. Every ad promises a breakthrough, a cure, a shortcut to happiness. If you don't keep up, are you even a modern woman? You collect pamphlets, bottles, and insecurities just in case. The 1950s is an era obsessed with progress. From kitchen appliances to vitamins, from vacuum cleaners to tranquilizers, there's always a latest thing, and it's always just around the corner, waiting for you in the glossy pages of Ladies' Home Journal. You flip through the magazine, heart fluttering with a cocktail of hope and anxiety. The headlines shout in stylish fonts, "A new era for nerves. Feel younger tonight. Science solves your biggest worry." Each new discovery seems like it might be the one that finally makes life a little bit easier, a little bit shinier, a little bit more like the pictures. But progress isn't cheap, and it certainly isn't simple. With every advance comes a new responsibility. You're supposed to know which pill to take, which cream to use, which miracle cleaning solution will finally keep the bathroom grout from turning an alarming shade of beige. The advertisements don't just sell products, they sell standards. You're measured not just by your roast or your hair or your children's grades, but by how well you're keeping up with modern science. Are you still buying the same soap your mother used? Have you switched to the new, doctor-approved toothpaste? Did you send away for the booklet about mineral supplements just in case? So you collect. The whole drawer is stuffed with pamphlets promising restful sleep, radiant skin, and perfectly obedient children, all thanks to the wonders of chemistry. The medicine cabinet bristles with half-empty bottles, each one a relic of some hopeful Tuesday when you decided maybe this is the answer. Some nights, after everyone else is asleep, you stand in front of the bathroom mirror and squint at the labels, trying to remember which one promised a new outlook and which one was just for occasional gloom. Underneath the surface, the pressure mounts. You compare notes with your friends, quietly, always quietly about the latest treatments. Have you tried the new mood tablets? My doctor gave me something for my energy. There's a cream that fixes everything, at least that's what the ad said. If you're not up to date, you're behind, and no one wants to be the cautionary tale at Bridge Club. The fear of missing out isn't new. It just comes wrapped in cellophane and tied up with a free sample. The anxiety isn't limited to beauty or health. It's in the kitchen too, where every month brings a new scientifically formulated food or labour-saving gadget. If you don't switch to instant pudding, are you denying your family progress? If you use regular dish soap instead of the latest bioactive formula, are you secretly falling behind? The world whispers that you must never let your standards slip, even if it means piling up a drawer full of unused miracles. Yet, with every new promise comes a lingering doubt. Maybe the real miracle is survival, getting through the day with your sanity intact, regardless of whether you remember to take your optimism tonic. Some days, you laugh at the absurdity of it all. Other days you just add another bottle to the growing collection and hope no one notices the layer of dust. In the end, you realise you're not alone. Every woman on your block is keeping up, falling behind and faking it in equal measure. The pamphlets and pills are less about progress and more about reassurance, a talisman against the creeping fear that you're not enough, or not doing enough, or not quite as modern as you're supposed to be. So you keep collecting, keep hoping, keep moving forward, one glossy promise at a time. Next up, let's close with a visit from the Avon lady, where confessions come as easily as samples, and trading secrets is just part of the sales pitch in the ongoing pursuit of comfort and connection. She comes to sell lipstick and leaves with your life story. You trade secrets, recipes, and a few diet pills. She knows everything, but she'll never tell, not for free anyway. There's a particular hush that falls over the house just before the knock. The children have been bribed into the backyard. The breakfast dishes are mostly rinsed, and the air hums with anticipation. The Avon lady arrives right on time, heels clicking, catalogue in hand, a living billboard for everything soft, pink, and scented with hope. Her smile is practiced but genuine, a kind of knowing grin that tells you she's seen it all, and probably survived most of it with little more than a dab of perfume and a prayer. Her visits are officially about cosmetics, lipsticks named Coral Fantasy, creams that promise to erase years, perfumes that capture moods you haven't felt since 1947. But everyone knows the real business is something much deeper. The moment the front door closes behind her, you both exhale, drop the pretense, and settle into a rhythm as old as friendship itself. She asks about your mother-in-law, you ask about her latest romance, you show her the new curtains, she shows you where to hide a bottle of tranquilizers in a hollowed-out talcum powder tin. Somehow, the little sample cases, powder puffs, tiny tubes, perfectly pastel compacts become currency for confessions. Maybe it's the act of being seen, of having another woman look you in the eye and actually listen, that opens the floodgates. The Avon lady is never shocked by what you say. She's heard it all before. Husbands who drink, children who won't eat, dreams deferred for the 1,000th casserole. She listens without flinching, her fingers already fishing a new colour of blush from her case, as you confess you sometimes wish you could run away to Paris, or at least to the motor lodge on Route 5. She trades too. For every secret you spill, she offers a tip, a recipe, a suggestion for how to keep lipstick from melting in your purse, or how to make a Sunday roast taste like it wasn't burnt twice. If you're really lucky, she'll slip you a sample bottle of something special, not for the faint of heart, and definitely not to be mentioned at Bridge Club. You reciprocate with a roll of diet pills that didn't agree with you, or the leftover energy tonic that made your hands shake too much to frost a cake. You both know that none of this is free. There's an unspoken economy at work. Today it's your turn to confess. Tomorrow it'll be hers. Sometimes the price is a lipstick in a colour you'll never wear. Sometimes it's a promise to keep an eye on her kids when she's out selling to the Jacksons down the block. But it's always worth it. The relief that comes from saying the unsayable to someone who gets it, who's been there, who can offer something stronger than sympathy and just as practical as cold cream. By the time she leaves, the afternoon sun is slanting through the kitchen window. Your heart feels lighter, your secrets less heavy. The new lipstick sits on the counter, a small badge of courage for the day ahead. You wave goodbye, knowing you've just participated in the oldest ritual of all. Women helping women, not just to look prettier, but to survive a world that expects them to smile through everything. Tomorrow, you'll swipe on the choral fantasy, pour another cup of coffee, and face the world again, armed with a new secret, a fresh tip, and the quiet knowledge that, somewhere out there, another woman is rooting for you. In a world full of hushed conversations and hidden bottles, sometimes the best thing you can have is an ally in good makeup and even better discretion. And with that, the house settles. The stories, the laughter, the burdens, traded, carried, shared. Until next time, when the doorbell rings and the cycle of confession and consolation begins all over again. It's neon orange, comes in a glass bottle, and claims to revitalize. What's in it? Mostly sugar, a suspicious amount of caffeine, and a dash of something that makes your ears ring. You offer it to guests as a pick-me-up and quietly wonder if it's why you haven't blinked since Tuesday. Welcome to the dazzling era of the 1950s kitchen counter energy drink. Before energy drink was even a phrase, and long before anyone questioned what artificial flavouring meant. In a land of jello salads and casseroles topped with potato chips, it's only natural that someone would bottle the promise of endless pep in a colour found nowhere in nature. There it sits on the top shelf, the sunlight passing through the glass and casting a radioactive glow onto your recipe cards. You buy it by the case at the local grocery, usually on special, right next to the new and improved powdered donuts. It comes in flavours like atomic orange or super citrus, each one brighter and bolder than the last. The label reads like a miracle, delivers pep and vim, a vitalising elixir for the busy modern homemaker. The fine print is less reassuring, a laundry list of ingredients with syllables you can't pronounce and a warning to consume in moderation. But when has moderation ever cleaned a house? It quickly becomes a staple in your afternoon routine. The clock strikes 3. The school bus roars down the street, and you line up the little bottles on the counter, twisting the caps with the efficiency of a short-order cook. One for you, one for your neighbour, one for anyone who dares to look drowsy within 100 yards. You pour the fizzing, shockingly sweet liquid over ice, marvelling as it bubbles and hisses like a mad scientist experiment. Try this, you say to your friend. It's just the thing for an afternoon slump. She sips, her eyes widen, and you both start giggling for no reason at all. Within minutes you feel the jolt. Your heart picks up speed, your toes start tapping, and suddenly, reorganising the spice rack seems like an urgent mission. Dishes get stacked, floors get swept, and you develop a sudden passion for sorting the junk drawer by size and colour. Your husband comes home to find you rearranging the entire living room furniture again, and wisely decides not to ask why the couch is now in the foyer. The energy drink doesn't just perk you up, it wires you for sound. The dog avoids you, the kids think you're auditioning for a dance show, and even the neighbour's cat stares through the window with suspicion. You try to read a magazine but end up speed flipping through the pages, barely registering the ads. That's the secret ingredient, you decide. Whatever makes your ears ring also short-circuits your ability to sit still. Of course, the come-down is just as memorable. After a whirlwind hour of productivity, sometimes 2 if you double up, the buzz fades, leaving you a little dazed, a little jittery, and extremely aware of your own heartbeat. You sit quietly on the back steps, sipping water, watching the sun set with the slightly frantic satisfaction of someone who's survived a minor storm. The neon orange glow lingers in your kitchen long after the bottles are gone, a warning and a badge of honour all at once. You joke about it with your friends, sharing stories of late-night vacuuming and impromptu curtain washing. I haven't blinked since Tuesday, you confess, and everyone laughs, secretly wondering if they'll ever sleep again. The kids beg for a taste, but you know better. This is an adults-only miracle, reserved for those who understand the true cost of revitalization. By bedtime, your energy has vanished, but your sense of accomplishment remains. Tomorrow you'll eye the glass bottle again, debating whether the promise of another burst of neon-coloured productivity is worth the roller coaster. In the 1950s, sometimes survival isn't just about getting through the day, it's about doing it with a smile, a sugar rush, and a suspiciously bright drink that leaves you wide-eyed and ready for anything. Next up, let's explore the mysterious world of monthly elixirs, the bottles marked for women only, hiding a world of relief, drowsiness, and the not-so-secret truth that sometimes the best medicine is the one nobody asks about. The box says, for women only, and that's code for nobody asks questions. 1 tablespoon soothes the cramps, calms the nerves, and puts you to sleep for 14 hours. Your husband thinks you're just resting. You know you're surviving. In the 1950s, the words for women only are more than a sales pitch. They're a protective incantation, a little velvet rope around the rituals of female survival. When you spot those words printed in pink cursive on a medicine box, you know you're in the realm of hush-hush cures and unspoken solidarity. No man will touch it, let alone inquire about the ingredients. If pressed, you mention female complaints or that time of the month, and the conversation dies faster than a fly on the windowsill. The monthly elixir is a marvel of mid-century chemistry, a dark, syrupy potion that smells faintly of licorice and ancient dread. The label promises relief for cramps, irritability, and general malaise. It does not mention that the main effect is a gentle sedative, enough to smooth your edges, hush your nerves, and send you drifting off into oblivion. The instructions are simple. Take 1 tablespoon as needed. A need is the defining feature of the week. You pour the syrup into a spoon, feeling that familiar blend of anticipation and resignation. Within 20 minutes, the ache in your belly melts away. The tightness in your chest loosens, and the world grows softer around the edges. The house becomes a distant hum, the constant demands fading to a gentle, ignorable background noise. Your body finally remembers how to relax. You curl up under the Afghan on the couch, ostensibly resting, and allow yourself to sink guilt-free into a deep, glorious slumber. Your husband walks through the room, glances at the empty mug and nods with understanding. She's out with her monthly troubles, he'll tell the children, and everyone leaves you alone. It's the only week you're permitted to be invisible, and you savour every second. Sometimes the elixir's side effects last longer than the symptoms. You wake, hours later, groggy but grateful, the pain forgotten, the pressure to be pleasant and productive put on hold. No one expects you to vacuum the stairs or referee an argument when you're under the weather. At bridge club, the other women wink knowingly when you admit to taking your medicine. There are no lectures, no have you tried hot water bottles, or maybe more fresh air. They know that some problems require stronger solutions, solutions best found behind the pharmacy counter, dispensed in a bottle decorated with flowers and discretion. You swap brands, recipes, even preferred napping positions. The only competition is whose elixir knocks you out the longest. You do your best to save the syrup for when it's truly needed. But there are months when as needed expands to include as soon as anyone starts screaming, or whenever the weather turns and the roof leaks again. The medicine becomes your secret weapon, a way to reclaim a little bit of peace in a world that expects you to smile through pain and thank the universe for the privilege. There's a certain irony in all of this. The one time you're allowed to drop out to rest without explanation or apology is when your body forces you to. The rest of the month, you push through, manage, organize, and perform. But during those precious hours, thanks to the monthly elixir, you finally get to step off stage. You lie still, dream in Technicolor, and remember what it's like to simply exist. And when you wake, you pour the last drops back into the bottle, tuck it away in the back of the cupboard, and prepare to rejoin the world, refreshed, rearmed, and quietly determined to do it all again next month. Next up, let's slip into the secret society of night owls, where midnight confessions and half a sleeping tablet are all that stand between you and the endless insomnia of suburban life. Some nights you and the neighbour exchange a glance through the window and know sleep is not coming. You meet at midnight for decaf, gossip, and just half a sleeping tablet. No one's really awake, but at least you're not alone. It always starts with the glow of a living room lamp across the dark lawn, a silent Morse code between women who know that insomnia isn't just a curse, it's a community event. You see Mrs. Greeley's silhouette, shoulders slumped over the sink, and you both recognise the signs. The kind of night when the mind won't quiet, when the weight of lists, worries and what-ifs presses down heavier than the eider-down quilt. There's a ritual for these occasions, a set of steps performed in slippers and whispers. The house is quiet, the air thick with the sound of distant crickets, and the ticking of the big kitchen clock. You slip out the side door, robes cinched tight, and tiptoe across dew-damp grass with the nervous excitement of a teenager sneaking out past curfew. Mrs. Greeley is already on her porch, a thermos of decaf in one hand and a tin of cookies in the other. There's a mutual understanding, no loud greetings, no demands. Tonight you're refugees from the tyranny of the sleepless night. You settle at the kitchen table, pouring yourselves mugs of decaf that's more ritual than remedy. Coffee keeps me up, you joke, even as you both know it's not the caffeine. You nibble on a stale cookie, trading stories about stubborn children, leaky faucets, and husbands who snore so loudly you're convinced it's a power move. The laughter is soft, almost cautious, but it fills the quiet in a way that nothing else can. Inevitably, the subject of sleep comes up. I tried counting sheep, Mrs. Greeley sighs, but then I started organising them by colour, and before I knew it, I was alphabetizing the pantry in my mind. You both chuckle, recognizing the absurd truth. Some nights, no amount of good intentions or hot milk will coax you into dreamland. That's when the real secret of the night owls is revealed. A half tablet shared in solidarity, placed on a saucer between you like contraband. Not enough to send you into a chemical coma, just enough to blur the edges, to hush the mental static, to promise a little relief. You break the pill, clink mugs, and toast to survival. Here's to another night, you whisper. The house around you sighs, as if grateful you've finally surrendered. You sit together in companionable silence, the world reduced to the gentle glow of the table lamp and the comfort of not being alone with your thoughts. The magic of the midnight meeting isn't just in the pill or the company, it's in the permission to drop the mask. At this hour, you can confess the things you'd never say in daylight. Your fears about aging, your doubts about motherhood, your wistfulness for the girl you used to be before all the lists and worries. Mrs. Greeley admits she sometimes dreams of running away to Mexico, and you confess your secret envy of your sister, who lives alone and orders takeout every night. The confessions are never judged. They're simply folded into the warmth of the night, made lighter by being shared. Eventually you stifle a yawn, finish the last sip of coffee, and rise to return home. You part with a hug, sleepy, grateful, a little stronger for having weathered the darkness together. The lamp clicks off, the house falls silent again, and you slip back into bed, heart eased, mind quieter. Sometimes that's all you needed. Not a full night's sleep, but the assurance that you're not the only one awake. Next up, let's talk about the battle against hysteria and how the pink pill for emotional stability became just another way to keep women calm in a world that never wanted them to shout. You've read the magazine articles. Every bad mood, every moment of frustration gets labelled hysteria, and conveniently, there's a pink pill for that. You swallow one, smile sweetly, and marvel at how being tranquilized is now a medical solution to being slightly annoyed. In the 1950s, the word hysteria covers a multitude of sins: raising your voice, slamming a cabinet, sighing too loudly at your husband's latest joke. Women's moods are national news, discussed in medical journals and ladies' magazines alike. Modern living can be taxing for the feminine constitution, the articles warn, as if folding laundry and suppressing your opinions could actually short-circuit your brain. And if it does, there's always a pharmaceutical fix, preferably pastel, discreet, and dispensed by a man who calls you dear. Your own pink pills come in a dainty bottle with a cheery label for nervous tension and irritability. The colour is supposed to be soothing, but you suspect it's just meant to look less alarming in the medicine cabinet. The pills are chalky and taste faintly of artificial cherries and submission. The doctor who prescribed them never asked what you were actually upset about. He listened to your list of worries, nodded knowingly, and handed you a prescription with the reassuring confidence of someone who's never had to clean under a refrigerator. At first you hesitate. Is this what progress looks like? Being medicated into docility every time the world feels overwhelming. But the pressure to be pleasant is relentless, and the pink pills promise something you haven't had in years: quiet. After dinner, when your nerves are frayed and your patience threadbare, you swallow one, settle into your chair, and let the gentle haze wash over you. The edges of your annoyance blur, your tongue softens. You watch your husband fuss over the sports page and your children bicker over the last cupcake, and you feel almost amused. Almost. There's an absurdity to it all. The pink pill doesn't fix the fact that you do twice the work for half the credit, or that your little outbursts are actually cries for help. It just flattens everything out, smoothing over the peaks and valleys until life is one endless stretch of agreeable grey. The magazine advice columns assure you this is restoring the feminine equilibrium. The bridge club ladies call it taking the edge off. You call it survival with a cherry aftertaste. Still, the world is suspiciously invested in your calm. The threat of hysteria looms over every conversation. Every moment you might be tempted to demand more, speak up, or simply admit you're unhappy. The pink pill is the difference between being difficult and being manageable, between getting a lecture and getting a refill. You learn to hide your true feelings behind a tranquilized smile, to laugh softly at jokes you don't find funny, and to accept that in this era, medical compliance is just another form of good manners. Sometimes you wonder what would happen if you skipped the pill, if you let the frustration build until it burst. Would you scream? Cry? Tell everyone exactly what you think about the new PTA president? The fantasy is fleeting, chased away by the soft numbness of the medication and the knowledge that rebellion is best kept as a secret wish, shared only in whispers with your closest friends. So you keep the pink bottle tucked in your purse just in case. You take one when the world gets loud, when your smile feels brittle, or when you need to remember that sometimes the only thing standing between you and total collapse is a carefully managed dose of chemical calm. Next up, let's explore what happens when the cabinet runs dry, when the pills are gone, the potions are empty, and all that's left is sheer willpower and a prayer that the world won't notice you've run out of miracles. It's bound to happen. The day you reach for a tablet, a powder, or just something that promises relief and it's empty. Panic sets in, followed by resourcefulness. You invent a remedy out of baking soda, lipstick, and pure willpower, then resolve never to let the stash get so low again. At first, it's disbelief. There's no way you could be out. You're always so careful, always tucking away an extra bottle just in case. But there you are, holding an empty jar, shaking it as if the force of your disappointment might conjure up one last miracle. The sense of betrayal is personal. You trusted that cabinet, counted on its secrets, and now it's nothing but glass and echoes. Panic arrives quickly and with a vengeance. You retrace your steps, checking every hiding place, the coffee tin, the glove box behind the soup cans, between the spare buttons in your sewing kit. You find nothing but lint, a stale peppermint, and the sudden realization that the entire afternoon is about to be a raw, unfiltered experience. The walls seem to close in. The children are louder, the dog is smellier, and the kitchen clock ticks with a malicious sort of glee. For a moment you consider calling your neighbour to see if she'll spare a pick-me-up, but pride gets in the way, and anyway you remember her frantic face last week when she ran out of her own supply. No, this is a test, a chance to prove you can still cope, even if just for one afternoon, on nothing but grit and household improvisation. Resourcefulness kicks in. You pull out the ancient home remedies, flipping through the drawer of family secrets for anything that might help. There's the baking soda trick, a teaspoon in water to settle the nerves, or at least the stomach. You dab a little extra lipstick, hoping that if you look pulled together, you'll start to feel it. You make a pot of strong coffee, pace the kitchen, and recite your own list of affirmations. This too shall pass. You've survived worse. Dinner can be toast if it has to be. The minutes crawl. You invent a new game for the kids. Let's see who can stay the quietest while you focus on breathing and counting spoons. The usual crutches aren't available, so you channel your inner grandmother and try the old trick of wrapping a cool rag around your forehead. Does it work? Not really, but it gives you something to do with your hands. Somewhere between despair and determination, you discover a strange resilience. Without the chemical safety net, you're forced to reckon with your own capacity for survival. It's not pretty. You snap at the kids, you burn the toast, you catch yourself humming a little too loudly to drown out the noise, but the world doesn't end. You make it to bedtime, tuck everyone in, and realize, reluctantly, that you can in fact do hard things, even if you'd really rather not. By the time the house is quiet, the panic has passed, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion, and a promise you'll never let yourself run so low again. You scribble a desperate list for the pharmacy, everything. You check the hours, make plans for an early morning trip, and picture yourself racing the other housewives for a fresh bottle of hope. As you climb into bed, a little proud and a lot depleted, you marvel at the ingenuity born of desperation. Today you ran on lipstick, baking soda, and sheer willpower. Tomorrow, with any luck, you'll be back to your carefully curated arsenal. But for tonight, you let yourself rest, comforted by the knowledge that sometimes survival isn't about what's in the cabinet, but about what's left inside you when everything else is gone. Next up, let's wind down with a soothing outro, recapping the absurdity, strength, and sly resourcefulness of women who made it through the day, one secret, one pill, and one laugh at a time. As we settle in for sleep, let's take a moment to reflect on the wild, jittery, and surprisingly brave world of the 1950s housewife, the one who ran her home with one hand on a whisk, the other rummaging for nerve tonic, and a heart carrying far more than anyone ever gave her credit for. Today, we might look back and laugh at the mountain of powders, the rainbow of pills, the never-ending parade of miracle cures tucked behind every cake tin. But beneath all those pastel pill bottles and polite little secrets was a woman doing what she had to do, holding her world together with whatever tools she could find, chemical, creative, or just plain stubborn. Tonight, as you nestle into a clean, quiet bed with no need to hide your snacks or your sedatives, maybe give a silent thanks to the generations before us who survived on less sleep, more anxiety, and a truly heroic tolerance for side effects. Remember, history isn't just grand battles or famous names, it's also the daily improvisations, the little deceptions, the whispered sisterhoods that made it possible to get through another day. For all their struggles, those women were tough, clever, and, let's be honest, a little bit hilarious, so let yourself relax. Breathe in the peace of the present, free from jittery diet candies and midnight elixirs. Know that you're part of a long tradition of resilience and resourcefulness, even if your drug cabinet these days is just Tylenol and a bar of chocolate. Rest easy, tomorrow's chores will wait, and the only thing you have to hide is your phone under the pillow. Good night and sweet dreams.